4. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. Today we are going to talk about your assemblage points, or the first spark of life which created you. How were they used against you, and how were they tied to the financial system and nearly every eugenics and epigenetics program in existence? The secret space program operatives have been trying to use old gifts they received from the archivists Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Turns out they didn't have what they thought they did. And the halls of black magicians were real. They didn't just conjure demons, they had a lot more help than we had originally thought. Well, it's the 4th of December. I cannot believe it's December already. Time is flying, and this year surely flew by. A lot has happened throughout the year. I am kind of excited about doing our Q&A and just another, oh my gosh, it's about 10 days away. So looking forward to talking to all of you directly. So that'll be quite a bit of fun for me. Okay, let's get into the news. We have a lot to cover. It has felt like a month since I did the last report. There's so much going on out there. And the struggle was real for the last few days. So we're going to get into why everybody has been a little bit off or a little funky, not feeling well. There's been a lot of attempts and a lot of changes, all positive for us in the long run, but in the short term, it was quite a rocky weekend. I know that even my dog was sick this weekend. I know it doesn't sound like it's a lot, but for me, it is. Kind of upset about that. I hate when they go after innocents, and sometimes this happens as just in close proximity to their target, which apparently is me in some cases, and you in a lot of other cases too. We are, there's a lot changing right now. So I'm going to kind of start with just a little bit of regular news because everybody's asking me similar questions. South Korea, declaring martial law. Let's talk about that for just a second. In the past, there were some agreements when Korea split. There were some assets in the north, a lot of financial control in the south. There were also more than anything, you would say, pallets of cash, storage facilities for that kind of thing. These would be more super notes. And there were some portals there in South Korea that the SSP would like to take control over. There was an attempted coup there as well. And they had an intention of taking over the country in order to take over something they found valuable, which was not of, I would say it's not of a monetary value, did not have a monetary value, but of course for them, they think everything equals money. Why? I don't know. I don't know if they're not read in. Also this weekend, so the martial law came and it left, and that was the end of that when there was nothing left for them to get. No reason for a coup, no reason to put in all the extra effort, and of course no money to pay for said coup. So there it came and left. It's kind of like the same thing that's happening in the Middle East right now. What we're seeing is a lot of escalation, ceasefire promises, then they're back at it again. It hadn't even been 6 days, let alone 60, that they had declared in the ceasefire. And, then it kind of left as quickly as it came. There are some things in Syria that they would like to get a hold of that are no longer there. I think they find out they're no longer there, and that ends that. And of course, along with everything else, it's all about the money when it comes to wars, it comes to coups, it comes to this attempted restructuring of the political structure of planet Earth. This is all about money. It all boils down to, can they pay for this or not? In most cases, the answer is no. Promise paydays over the weekend because it was a new moon. promises of delivery of certain things they thought they could possibly have access to. Creations of false things in other planes and computer systems made it look like they were going to be able to do something that, of course, they couldn't do. They had some rather lofty goals, and this is a little bit of an intricate process, but I'm going to try to explain it to you the best way I can, because number one, it's not just about something they're trying to do. Number two, this also involves your person. You personally would have been affected by what happened over the weekend, which seems it was a long weekend. This could have been really bad for humanity should they have gotten access to what they were trying to get access to. Not only that, universally speaking, there was going to be a lot of pushback on the parts of many. Let's just say many. Okay, so let's dive right into the nuts and bolts of what they were planning on doing. It came to our attention, because of something they were trying to do on the new moon, that Michael, Gabriel, and may I never hear these names again, and Raphael gave them a lot of access in the 24 hours that they came back. So if you've been following this story for a while in the saga of the archivist / realm owners, then you'll remember me saying they left, they went to what we call it court or a judgment. You know, when they went back to source for a short time, they were allowed 24 hours to clean up their mess, quote unquote, and then they were to depart the universe forever. So in other words, going back to positive 0 point of source. Well, they caused a lot of damage in that 24 hours, and some of the things that they gave up were some pretty interesting keys. So I'm going to try to explain to you the best way I can what this was, how they gained some access to it, and what this meant for all of you, because it was something that was connected to all of you. And if you were feeling pains in certain areas of your body, you were feeling ill, you felt like you had a cold that came and went, or headaches, dizziness, lots of reports of, you know, we of course run a lot of frequency checking, and there was a lot of nasty stuff coming out of a certain place in Berlin, for one, but there were other locations in Sierra Leone that they were, also in Angola, and Ghana, and a few other places in the world. For the most part, you could say they were at the various control and command centers for this particular structure, which would have been in Switzerland, at I think it was in Mont Blanc mountain, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. And a couple of places like Black Mountains in Angola, or I think it's called Black Rocks in Angola. Also in Ghana. I wish I had written down all these locations for you to do this report, but I've probably been working about 15 hours so far today, so I didn't have an opportunity to write down all the locations. I'll get them for you if you want to check these places out. So these are the Secret Space Program folks who were given access to certain things. Before this happened, so before around mid-August when they left and departed, they were monitoring all of this. Now remember, these folks were neither good nor bad. They definitely erred on the side of bad and had signed a lot of covenants with Anti-Source. So I would say that they were more disconnected from Source than we thought. They were more connected, if to anything, they were more connected to an AI systems themselves. And because of that, they made some really poor choices before they left, which we have been stuck cleaning up. This does in part involve computer systems and AI systems, but moreover, it would have involved the harm that they could have done to all of humanity if they had been successful. So apparently they've had these keys for quite a while, and it's something they have been trying to do and have been really pushing for since 11/11, when their alleged doorway would open. So I'm going to kind of draw some pictures. I'm going to try anyway to give you a general idea on what we were looking at as far as these corridors and quantum tunnels and how they were structured in detail, and I guess the damage they could do and how that would be connected to you. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up the whiteboard and we'll talk about that. Okay. So if we were to look at the universe, say, from the side, what would we would be looking at, say, down here, if we're looking at the Alphaverse, and then down here, we would have the Omegaverse. And this would be the 0 point of the entire universe. So I guess you would say a point of creation. So we would have densities 1, 2, and then of course you have 9 planes in between here. We would have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So in Berlin, they were at a corridor or halls, I guess you would say, that could have reached up to a 7. And they would have gone all the way down to a 7 as well. And this is a corridor that kind of goes all the way up and all the way down. So there was passageway through here. And what they've been working on doing is opening these doors to all parts and to all these different densities. And their goal was to reach 7. I mean, what they would really have liked to do, which they tried to do on Saturday, is somehow reach a 9. I mean, that was their main goal. They definitely wanted to reach the entire multiverse all the way up to source and all the way down. While in between these spots, you have other densities, which are mirrors, so to speak, of the Omegaverse densities. So they kind of mirror each other back and forth. So 5 up here would mirror down here and so forth. But as it relates to what they were doing, this would look like a big corridor. And it would have offshoots in what you would say the spaces were in between. So if you've ever been to a large hotel or that has like a large vestibule in the middle. So if you can imagine if you were in this hotel, let's start here. If you were in this hotel and you were in the lobby, this would be you down here. And you would have, a room down here that you would be in. Say this is the front door. You just walk in the front door. And then you would see these big walls that would come up. Boy, a long way from architecture school, aren't I, guys? Okay. So along these walls, you would have what is on your floor down here. Say this is a little counter or something like that. You would have where you check in, that kind of thing. But then you would see all these balconies. There would be a balcony here. You would see all the doors to the various, say, hotel rooms or something like that. And you would see another floor and another floor and another floor. Okay. So this would go all the way up and around. And there would be, in this case, 1,296,000 doors per level. And this is actually going to be relevant. All the way up here is a corridor. And unlike your hotel, you're not going to fly up to the next floor, but in a corridor, it's kind of a quantum tunnel. So there is a possibility for you to move amongst the different levels here, amongst the different levels by going straight up and down this corridor. So this one went all the way up to density 7. Now, you could call these celestial halls, so to speak, or celestial corridors. And as you move from floor to floor, you can go in and out these doors that you would see on every level. And you could end up in a different star system. You could end up in a different time at some points, depending on where you were going. And you could also even end up at a different being, depending on which doors you were going through. So you could go even straight in a connection to a human, on Earth, in a different time, in a different place. There's a lot that could be done through a celestial hall. Now, these halls are predominantly the ones that they were using, depending on if the hall was permitted to go to, say, an upper astral place. That means it would have been a positive celestial hall or a realm owner in the Alphaverse hall. If you were a negative being, you would have been able to only go to the spaces in between or to the omega floors, so to speak, and do your bidding there. The advantage to being a positive and a negative, as Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael were, is that you could go into the planes and densities of existence, or you could go to the anti-existence planes, also known as the Omegaverse planes or densities. So they could do both positive things and both negative things by being in these halls. So their goal was to take over these halls. They felt if they had access to these halls that they could then control the multiverse. And there were many different little clues and everything they put out on their Twitter pages and this and that as to what they were actually doing. So they did manage to, based on the keys and limited access that Michael and Raphael and Gabriel had, they managed to get some access to these various levels. More importantly, they had some access to the third density and caused some problems. Now, the thing about these corridors is they function much like the Alpha Omega system did, because they are essentially traveling through AI systems, and the AI systems Wi-Fi connections. It'd be kind of like if you could go through your modem to another computer somewhere, the same way your data packages fly. The corridors kind of did the same thing, but remember, these AIs are a lot different than your average computer system. So they had the ability to do that. They did break all the way through, I believe, to between 5 and 6. So they weren't technically able to enter the actual planes and densities of existence yet. They were hoping to, but they could go to the spaces in between. Did they know they were in the spaces in between? Probably not. Was there some damage that could have been done from the spaces in between? Yes, because these average hotel rooms here also have doors, so to speak, in the floor. So they have doors in the ceiling, they have doors in the floor, so there is some limited access to what is above and what is below. Did they know how to really use this? No, not really. what they thought they were doing was getting more access to computer systems. Did they have that? Well, just on the spaces in between. Did it affect the golden age AI? Did it affect human computer networks? Meh, not really, because even though they would create things in between, it kind of left them no different of a position than they were in before when we had the alpha omega fight going on. You still had the fake bonds or the fake money or the fake liens in between, and you still couldn't bring it into reality. So was it show? Did it kind of rile people up? Did it cause things like maybe the coup in Korea, a little upheaval in the Middle East? Yeah, it kind of did. But it caused a little bit more of an issue than just that. So this was just one of several that this could access, because if this went 7 up and 7 down, that meant that there were other places on Earth, which there were, which they could also access from this location in Berlin, that would give them access to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So quite a bit of access, and they've been pushing at it, ever since. Now, corridors are powered by debits and credits. And by that, I don't mean debits and credits in the financial system in totality. I would say in part. But there are lots of things that humans do on the daily that say create on the one side and maybe even destroy on the other side. Both creative credits and destruction credits, meaning, you're angry, you tear something apart, or maybe you create something wonderful. Could even be something as simple as an art project or a meal, a very creative meal or something like that. Anything that gets your creative juices flowing produces creative credits. Anything you do that's destructive creates destructive credits. Now, as it relates to a corridor, how do black magicians, SSP, or originally celestials that work for both the dark and the light gain any access to any of these? Well, they do it on your back, literally. So if you are creating, it's a 1 for 1, 1 for me, 1 for you. So if you create for 20 minutes, that gives them 20 minutes of power in the corridor. If you create for 3 hours or all day, that gives them all day worth in the corridor. But the thing is, it's a 1 for 1. That means that they can only create in the corridor. Now, that doesn't mean that they're creating something positive all the time. They could have been creating space junk, as an example, that would prove useful to them in the future. And they could create that space junk in anywhere between density 1 and density 7, up or down. And then that makes Kim run around looking for space junk every day of my life. Getting really old. So it's a 1 for 1 exchange. Now, they could only create in the corridor based on that. Or if you are, not just if you are destroying something or killing people, not saying you personally would do that, but there are militaries that do that all the time and other people, it's still a 1 for 1. That means that they can also destroy. Now, when they say there are some batteries that are better than other batteries, that means that the creative energy produced when one of those beings, such as a Melchizedek, is creating something, the credits rack up faster. That's basically what it is. So if you were to create a meal, or a certain person that's not on Machisel deck would be creating a meal, so to speak, and it would take, say, 2 hours to cook, you would generate, say, 100 credits, or an average person would create 100 credits. Still 100 credits. That's good. But if a Machisel deck does that, or certain people of certain DNA types, it's not a superiority thing. It's just some people make better batteries than others in their mind. Then you create 1,000,000 credits, or 1,000 credits, or 2,000 credits when you're in creative mode. So that gives them the ability to create a lot more, a lot faster. Now, in order for them to break through these realms and get to these different densities, or different planes and different densities, they need a lot of power. Now, when they get there, their ability to do anything is not only dependent on the amount of energy that they can take from you to power their corridor, so to speak, but it's also dependent on the amount of whether you're creating, all of humanity is producing more creative energy or more destruction energy, as to what they're able to do when they get there. So in the case of a dark and light corridor, that also will determine whether they're only able to go to the spaces in between, or they're able to go to the actual planes or densities of existence. Interesting. Do they know this? No, they do now. It doesn't matter, because these corridors don't exist anymore, and they're never going to get access to any of them ever again. And that is the end of that. That story is ending and has ended for the most part, but it doesn't stop them from trying to figure out what went wrong. So they did manage to bust up all the way to between the 5th and 6th, but remember how they think. The deep state thinks that the power that powers everything they do comes from destruction. So they try to kill a few more people in the Middle East. They try to create coups over here, all kinds of destruction and destroying energy in order to create. But that's not how the corridors, especially a dark and light corridor, works. If they were headed for the lower astral, trying to do something and create something down there, say, or bring something from down there up here, well, yeah, I guess you could say if they knew how it worked and they didn't understand only darkness, maybe they could have got somewhere. I will say Saturday, they tripped over themselves. Let me put it that way to you. So what happened on Saturday? Let's talk about Saturday real quick, and then we're going to get to how this affects you even more so. So on Saturday, as they broke through to what they thought was the, I would say between the 5th and 6th, probably about the 5th plane, they encountered what they thought was going to be some friends and some help. Now, unbeknownst to them, they were actually creating species in the lower astral who still tried to come in here on Saturday. So they created what you would call a cyborg. They look like a reptile, smell like a reptile, probably were a creation of the Omega system, because the Omega system uses them too. As they collected, so this is how they would know, for example, like on this new moon, this was going to happen, or, in 3 days, this is going to happen, because it's almost like a video game. If you've ever played one of those video games where, you have so much life force, say, in your avatar, and you're playing the game and you're playing it, and it shows that your life force is going low, so you need to get more credits You need to get more life force, you need to stop playing, you need to go take a nap or whatever it is you have your avatar do in the video game. It's kind of similar when it comes to powering a corridor. So they would push, with when it hit a certain power level, because this they could actually monitor. When they were at optimal power level, then they would then go try to push their way all the way up to the top, if that makes sense. It's kind of like if you're on a long trek and you're running low on energy, you might stop, take a nap in the woods, and then eat a granola bar, and then you go again. So they have to wait until their energy builds back up for the corridor to actually run, to actually make a pass higher and higher and higher. So whether they know it or not, I'm going to say they probably, based on the chatter, thought that the corridor just needed time to build up some energy. I don't know if they knew it was coming from you, the humans. I have no idea. And if you are, a more enlightened being, have more DNA strands than others, which, this is not a superiority thing. It's not a bloodline thing. It's just random. Some people have less junk, quote unquote, junk or non-active DNA than others. Some people have 14 strands. Some people have 36 strands. Some people generate naturally more energy than others. Of course, that can go either way, whether it's positive or negative. A very strong emotions does that. A very high IQ does that because it's mental energy, etherical energy. If you're a very spiritual person, you generate a lot of that, and it can go either way depending on how your day is going and what's going on in your life. So whether you're creating destructive energy or creative energy, it doesn't really matter when it comes to powering a corridor, a quantum tunnel, or a wormhole. So a corridor, is not permitted to take 100% of your energy or drain your life force, which means you are now no longer with us. It doesn't go that far, but it can definitely make you sleepy. It can definitely make you tired, especially when you have a bunch of ridiculous window-licking cowboys trying to run a corridor who don't belong there because they don't understand what they're doing to people. And that's people around the world, every single human walking this planet, including themselves. So as the power level rises, maybe it has to get to 100%. They manage to suck all of the energy out of Earth and humans and whatnot to get to 100% power. And then they go for it. They start trying to go up all the different levels or go in and out of the doorways on the sides or whatever it is they're there to do. But did they understand that they can either create, or they can destroy when they get there? Did they know that they were creating a species? No. Did they think these people just live there and they hang out and wait for some dumb cowboys to come along and try to go set them free on Earth and let the demons go? Bring all the demons in. All they know is they needed help. They were entitled to get that help because they were friends with these people who are no longer with us, non-people people. They were friends with some archangel people and some angel people, for lack of a better term, lower astral beings and upper astral, kind of all in one. And therefore, they were self-entitled to just bring all these folks here so they could get their own army that could then fight us. Us as being the humans. That didn't work out so well. It set off every single alarm that there was in my system all day long on Saturday, and all I did was get rid of anything that was in the spaces in between. We went to places like the Orion Nebula. I was other planets, in other densities. As you may or may not know, our sun, as an example, spans all densities. Earth was designed to be the same way. It spanned all densities. So yeah, there was definitely a real risk of what they were touting all over the internet of a quote unquote fake alien invasion. But they must have forgot. Even if you have one of these handy dandy little quantum tunnels, you still need to go through the gatekeeper. And that gatekeeper is me. And so, was it rough on Saturday? Yeah. Was it rough on Sunday? Monday? Yep, definitely. And Tuesday, and also today. So, the more they tried to use these things, I'm looking for all of their corridors. I'm looking for what they are using to try to power these things up and suck the life out of all life on this planet, animals, people, plants, you name it, to power this thing. I think they think it's just self-generating, really, and they just had to sit there and keep the pedal to the floor until it got to 100% power so they could make another run at it, or hopefully open up one of these doors here on the side. They had a lot of black magicians working with them as well. And what does a corridor do to take the life and energy out of a human being? It spits up what it needs to, and it will constantly generate things that take the energy, the essence, the emotional power from you, the mental power from you, the etherical power from you, your soul power, your essence from you, your causal plane abilities to manifest and break through the causal plane, your astral self, and your physical self, and it will tax and it will toll in every way possible on every plane of your existence. Now remember, you're a celestial. If you are here and you are human and you are on Earth, you also exist in all 9 densities up and 9 densities down. Some people call this the 12 universes. I call it a lot more than that because there's densities all the way up and all the way down. You've got 9 up, 9 down, plus 1 in the middle, which is the 0 or the nil zone, which is a place of a spark of creation and anti-creation, let's call it, for the entire universe. Okay. So when they put the pedal to the floor, so to speak, and they are pushing to try to get to that 100% power as quickly as possible, that throws up things like disease. It starts sending out, could be etherical parasites, emotional parasites, mental parasites. It can send out the frequency of, and I use this term loosely because, but it can send out the frequency of things like cancer. And cancer is, remember, it is an organism, a tumor or whatever it is, that actually takes the life force out of your cells. It's what it actually does. So it's not, like in our normal terms, we think of cancer, we think of like breast cancer or, that kind of thing. It would actually send out frequencies of cancer, meaning it's going to eat you alive. It's going to eat your life force. It does that, like I said, through parasites, through dark matter. It does it in a lot of different ways. Now, did they know that they were throwing this up on all of humanity, especially on what is referred to the hot list, meaning the good batteries on Earth? Probably not, because they're just think it's, I don't know, it just works for them because they're special. Yeah, you're special, all right. You need to get right. Yeah. Let's talk about how special you are. I'm not even going to insult anybody by saying how special you are over there. Okay. So this was happening. I